Yo, what's good, everybody? It is your boy Golden Falls, Golden What Ifs, whatever you want to call me, and I am back. This is a brand new What If Tanjiro had a leveling system. And as always, if you guys enjoy, please show some love, leave a like, leave a sub, leave a comment down below, all that good stuff. As always, this is a brand new What If. This is a one shot. Not sure how long it's going to end up being, but it is a one shot in its entirety. So yeah, if you guys enjoy it, obviously show love to the video, show love in general. If you guys end up liking the video, as well as I've actually done something similar to this in the past. I've done What If Tanjiro had solo leveling, but this is not the same. Obviously, this is different. This is gonna be just a flat out leveling system. Nothing to do necessarily with solo leveling or anything like that. But if you guys enjoy, as always, show some love. Check the links in the description for the Discord, the Spotify, and the membership if you want to check those out as well. And I don't want to waste much more of your time, and I want to get right into it. So let's get it. Tanjiro Kamado would go through life very similar to normal. But the thing is, when it comes to Nezuko, this would be the first time when she becomes a demon is when things would change. Because when he would go to try to save his sister, out of just sheer will and kind of want and just pushing forward, is when he would unlock a sense of himself that is different than anything he's ever seen. Nezuko would start attacking him, and he would defend himself. And as he's defending himself, he could feel that he's getting, he's not as strong as he could be, and he's trying to protect himself and also protect Nezuko, and he's trying to push himself, and then out of nowhere, he can feel something going on. Something comes up in front of his face. It seems to be like a blue screen of some sorts, and it gives him a total layout of what he is. And it says class. He's a normal kind of person, a normal human, right? And he seems to be in a role of like a balanced kind of player and a balanced kind of like a person in general. His stats are very basic, being that he's only level 1, but he has a strength. He has his strength, agility, endurance, all that stuff, right? Intelligence, wisdom, charisma, perception, and luck. And it says his passive ability is a keen sense of smell. And he's sitting there like, what does this mean? What does this even mean? And then out of nowhere, it says that he goes from level 1 to level 3, giving him 2 points that he can put into various kind of abilities if he so chooses to do so. So as a last ditch effort, he decides to just put the 2 points into strength, having the strength go up obviously from its base stat. And his base stat of strength currently is 8, going up to a 10. And as this happens, it allows him to actually defend himself and against Nezuko a lot easier. And then eventually the whole thing with Giyu and all that stuff, and the little fight that he has with Tanjiro, that still occurs the exact same. But when Nezuko's knocked out, and so is Tanjiro, when they both wake up, Tanjiro would wake up with another stat sheet in front of him. Yes, he has his own, but now he has his demon sister, Nezuko, in which the class is just demon, obviously race of human / demon, and it seems as if she has like her own stat sheet as well, even higher stats than Tanjiro himself, being far stronger in all these things. And her passive ability is, well, demon regeneration, a basic regeneration that she has. And Tanjiro's thinking to himself, like, okay, well, it seems as if that this leveling system has basically some connection to Nezuko as well, not just him, which definitely makes him very interested in kind of what's going on. But with all that said, he doesn't bring this up to Giyu at all, because he decides, all right, I'm just gonna keep this in my back pocket just in case, because I have no idea what any of this means, what's going on and what's really happening in general. And he does notice that his stats are actually pretty interesting, because his stats, he has a lot of charisma and a good amount of perception, being that obviously he has, a pretty good keen sense of smell. And he wonders, what are the best stats for him to even put points in when he ends up getting points? Right now, he obviously doesn't have any points, But when he meets with Urokodaki for the first time and would face off with the Temple Demon and defeat him with the help of Nezuko and also eventually Urokodaki, he would get some more points. And he's thinking to himself, what would be the most important thing for him to really put points into? And he thinks to himself, okay, well, I could do strength and just, get as strong as possible in terms of physical strength, but maybe that's not the best idea. Maybe he should go agility, maybe endurance, maybe some more intelligence so he can learn quicker or, solve problems easier. So he decides, you know what, I'm going to hold off on the strength part of things because he feels that he's going to get physically strong anyways, at least for the moment. So he decides, what would help me with training? Because this is when he begins training with Urokodaki. And he also sees that when he gets levels, Nezuko also gets a percentage of that XP. Nowhere near as much as he would get from actually getting levels himself, but one level of XP would be like a 10th of a level for someone like Nezuko. So when she's sleeping, she will also be getting levels and getting stronger on top of whatever else she's going to go through as well. But with that said, Tanjiro begins training with Urokodaki and starts putting most of his points into endurance, intelligence, and some sort of luck that he decides, because he believes that having a little bit of luck is going to be helpful. But the main two are endurance and intelligence, allowing him to actually work a lot harder and work a lot more within the training, but also having the intelligence to be a quicker learner than normal. So as he goes up to about level 15, which is the highest he can actually get, at least right now, without, ending demons, he would get a good amount of points, putting them within endurance and intelligence, splitting them up for the most part evenly, and maybe adding a couple points to luck just in case. But he believes that these are definitely helpful, and they're going to be helpful for his training. And it's true. It's damn true that it helps with his training, because he learns water breathing a lot quicker than normal, and he also just has so much more endurance to get a lot more out of his training. So his skills, like his strength, agility, his his speed and stuff like that, it actually goes up even passively. So he decides that in terms of training, he's just going to focus on these other attributes that maybe won't go up as much as something like strength and agility based on just physical training. But he's going to focus on these first so that eventually he can focus on, your strength, your agility, and maybe even something like perception, because he feels like he has plenty of charisma to spare. So after the training with Urokodaki, after that long period of time, including training with the spirits of Sabito and Makomo, he is at, well, like I said, level 15, having points in like I said with having him in intelligence and endurance allowed him to really up his game a lot quicker, so he can get to really mastering water breathing a lot faster. And yes, he's not a master of water breathing, not necessarily, but he's a lot stronger in that idea, right? In terms of water breathing, in terms of the technique itself and how fluid he is at utilizing it, he's a lot better at utilizing it than he really has ever expected him to be. Eventually, he would go to the final selection, and during this final selection, those points in endurance and also intelligence, making him a better problem solver, is very, very important to actually keep a lot of these people alive. And when he starts slaying demons like the hand demon and all these demons here, which by the way he sees as just an experience at this point, because he's thinking to himself, the more he actually kills, the better things are going to be for him in terms of power, including power for Nezuko. Because yes, he went up maybe like up to probably level 20 to 25. Nezuko herself has maybe a couple levels too that he could truly utilize and put toward her points and her kind of abilities as well. Having something very similar kind of to his type of, like actual like points and stuff like that. Having, the same things, same attributes like strength, agility, endurance, all these stuff. So he kind of focuses for her on like, you know, agility, and focuses on stuff along those lines, and even intelligence, being able to kind of awaken her consciousness a lot more and have an understanding of what's going on along a lot more as well. But with her not there, like actually fighting the demons, he doesn't have a ton of points for her to actually get into, but he gets a decent amount of levels throughout this entire forest, and he cleans house. He cleans house on this entire area. Even if he wasn't super strong against the hand demon, if he kills other demons first and then goes to the hand demon, it's a foregone conclusion for him to end the hand demon very quickly. And clearing out this entire forest gives him countless numbers of XP and countless numbers of attribute points he can put toward endurance, intelligence, and also maybe even perception, a little bit of luck, stuff like that. And it continues to up and up and up his ability, and his ability to just utilize not only water breathing, but also start seeing and realizing that he has a little bit of the Hinokami Kagura within him. Like, he remembers stuff a lot sooner from the idea of sun breathing. Yes, he doesn't know it's sun breathing, but he knows the idea is still like kind of at its surface, and he realizes like, hey, I might be able to do that. I might be able to replicate that, and he'll have to continue upgrading his kind of intelligence and stuff like that for him to start understanding it. But in terms of utilizing water breathing and everything else, endurance helps so much that he's really not as tired as he would be ever. Even after clearing an entire area of demons, an entire forest of demons, he's not even like fully exhausted. Yes, he's tired, but he's not fully exhausted the way he would have been if he was just like, you know, your normal demon slayer type of thing that he was in the original. But eventually he gets his Nichiren ore, you know, he shatters the arm of Genya, stuff like that, you know, the normal things, and he heads back to Urokodaki and Nezuko. After they basically have a conversation, get his blade and stuff like that, he would embark on his first mission, and his first mission against the Swamp Demon would be a lot easier, especially because he has Nezuko with him as well. And this would be the first time he sees that Nezuko gets a lot more experience when she is actually with him, because when they slay the Swamp Demon, which is not a difficult task, being that he's a lot stronger than normal, he actually sees that Nezuko gets quite a few points. I mean, normally she was getting like 2 points for like 20 levels basically, but this time around it's not like that. This time around she gets like 5 extra points and stuff like that, as Tanjiro does up his own level, but it's not as much. But since Nezuko is a lower level, she skyrockets a lot quicker from this is singular demon kill. So Tanjiro puts, you know, points and helps her out with you know, like a kind of either perception or kind of intelligence, and bringing her back to consciousness slowly but surely. But on top of that, also putting other points into, you know, anything that he believes is important for her to legitimately live, adding a couple into strength and agility, but mostly focusing on strength, agility, and intelligence, trying to bring her back to consciousness. And slowly but surely she is getting a little bit more understanding of the situation that they're in. Not in the idea of like she's going to remember her parent or her mother, you know what, like, you know, crossing to the afterlife. She's not going to remember that, because that is a sad thing that she eventually learns of. But for now, she is kind of understanding more and more about situations and what she should be doing, and not kind of making sure that she's not getting in the way at all, even better than normal. And she's a lot stronger, at least to a certain extent, than normal as well, via her agility and strength being upped higher than normal as well, leading them to obviously facing off and seeing Muzan Kibuzuji in the very next area, or the, you know, the city that never sleeps. Obviously Muzan does his whole thing to get out of there, but he does send demons after Tanjiro while Tanjiro is meeting with Lady Tamayao and Yushiro. As they're talking, they do kind of break down certain ideas and about Nezuko and about how to cure her, in which obviously Lady Tamayao is like, well, the best thing I could think of is getting me blood that I can study, right? From the 12 Kizuki and from, you know, other demons, stuff like that. That is what, like, we need. That is what I need. And that is what's going to have to happen, so that we make sure that, like, hey, okay, we understand everything. We got everything down. And we can learn about what's going on with Nezuko, in which they do talk for a little bit about various things. And then Tanjiro eventually decides that he feels that he needs to explain something to her as well, telling her that he has some sort of I don't know how to explain it, stat or statistical system that allows him to level up. And she's like, what the hell are you talking about? And Tanjiro's like, okay, well, maybe I shouldn't have brought this up, because it's not like it's some normal thing. You're not going to understand it, and it's not going to happen. And she asks, well, let me ask you this. Is it about you getting more powerful? And do you get more powerful faster? In which he's like, yes, that's exactly what it is. It allows me to get stronger faster, you know, to be have more agility faster, maybe have more endurance and stuff like that. And she's like, okay, I got you. I understand to an extent, because all that sounded like a bunch of nonsense. But at the same time, she's like, I get it. It's like training, but even better. And she says that it might be a good idea to get Nezuko's blood and also his blood to kind of maybe understand a little bit of what is going on. But also it might help her get a cure a lot quicker. In which Tanjiro would be hesitant, but would decide that, frankly, a little bit of blood from him isn't going to do anything. And on top of that, it's not like he has a choice. He has to somehow trust Lady Tamayao and Yushiro, believing that they brought him here for a reason, and they would have been trying to kill him if they had any nefarious things or bad intentions going on. And eventually that soccer ball would come through their house, and Tanjiro would be ready to fight and have basically a battle with Susumaru and Yahaba. And being that he does have a little bit better perception here after, leveling up and stuff like that, and obviously a lot more intelligence, he's able to understand a lot more of how these two kind of work, and how these two basically have their powers and how their powers work and stuff like that. Because this right here is his chance to really take them on and take them down. Now, Susumaru isn't too difficult. It's very straightforward with the way her soccer ball type of blood demon are, or whatever, her kind of whole thing and what's going on. But in terms of Yahaba, he's unable to see the arrows coming his way, but eventually he does understand it and eventually does see it via his perception. And with Nezuko's help and Lady Tamayao and Yushiro, but they really don't need their help that much, at least, eventually they would both take down those two demons, getting a good amount of XP from this, being that these demons are actually stronger than some of these other demons that they've faced off with so far. The Swamp Demon, not too powerful. Yes, the Hand Demon was decently strong, whatever, blah, blah, but Nezuko gets a lot of experience from this as well, leveling her up quite a bit and having her, be even more intelligent, and even to the point where she basically can form slight sentences, even through kind of the bamboo stick that she has, and she's able to form slight sentences, but they don't really feel comfortable taking out the bamboo stick from her mouth, because you never know, right? She could still try to bite people or something along those lines. You never really know. But at the same time, they make sure that she is, under a good headspace, and that right there is helpful. More points is definitely helpful in the long run, and she gets up her level quite a bit from these two demons being defeated. Tanjiro, yes, he does level up a decent amount, but nowhere near as much as Nezuko, being that Nezuko is already still a low level. So he would probably shoot up to, something along the lines of like 35, maybe high 30s. But in terms of Nezuko, she would shoot up to from probably level 3 to level, whatever, right? Level 15 or even towards level 20. And this is when she would stop leveling as much, because, every so often you're going to have that gap where you need a stronger demon to get more levels. And that's the same thing that's happening with Tanjiro right now too, is as he's leveling up, yes, he is feeling the potential, feeling the strength, and feeling his power rising higher and higher. But he knows that the leveling system, the experience, he needs more experience as he continues to kind of shoot higher to get even stronger. Now, after the defeat of Susumaru and Yahaba, this is when Lady Tamayao would send them off and basically tell them, bring me the blood, or send, kind of get the blood of the 12 Kizuki. We'll have a way to, get to you and have somebody pick it up and stuff like that. Tanjiro agrees to this and heads off, and this will be the first time he meets up with Zenitsu, and he begins to think, well, since Zenitsu is kind of in my party, is he gonna have a leveling system? And he thinks, oh, maybe just maybe I can help him out. But that's actually not true. It doesn't really matter. It's only because Nezuko is fully connected to Tanjiro on a different scale, being that they're family. And also, like, he was there when she was becoming a demon. So he had some sort of connection via their leveling system. In terms of Zenitsu, it seems like he isn't connected in that way, or at least to an extent isn't connected that way. Tanjiro, well, he's kind of telling Zenitsu, like, look, we gotta go, blah, blah, blah. And all that charisma that Tanjiro has, it definitely helps because it affects Zenitsu's feelings on actually leaving and believing in himself. So yes, directly he's not getting affected by the stat system, but he is getting affected by the charisma and all that stuff that Tanjiro helps him with, and eventually might even help him with training and stuff like that, because it would help, you know, Zenitsu and maybe a future other Demon Slayer get even more powerful via that charisma. And Tanjiro realizes very quickly that charisma might not just be something he thought, oh, I already have that, right? Like, I'm good with that, blah, blah, blah. No. He actually realizes, like, I might need to put more points in this because it could convince other Demon Slayers to even get better, stronger, maybe even have a better chance at surviving. And these are things that are very important. So Tanjiro's keeping this in mind heavily. In terms of the fight with Kyogai when they get split up, Tanjiro does definitely motivate Zenitsu to do even better. But when he faces off with Kyogai and then eventually Inosuke kind of jumps in, he actually is able to convince Inosuke to help him. Now, Tanjiro doesn't necessarily need the help. Tanjiro's actually way stronger at this point, especially stronger than Kyogai. And he's able to take him down, like, pretty easily. And at the end of the day, he's able to get rid of Kyogai very quickly. But Kyogai was no joke in terms of demon. Like, he gave them quite a bit of XP, mostly Tanjiro, because Nezuko actually isn't present for this, being that she's in her box kind of outside. And since she is in her box outside, she only gets a percentage of the XP, like even lower than normal. But Tanjiro gets a pretty big jump, going from 35 to 40. And he immediately thinks, all right, I'm just going to put all this into charisma, these 5 points, believing that it's going to help him in the long run. He already has a lot of endurance and intelligence, a little bit of strength and agility here and there, stuff like that, and a little bit of luck. But he believes like this is going to help him a lot more. Inosuke helps him out actually defeating Kyogai in this version, and would lead to him getting the blood of Kyogai, a former 12 Kizuki, or former member of the 12 Kizuki, and eventually they head out. And this is when Zenitsu actually is stopping Inosuke, who he ran off just like normal, but he would eventually run off after the defeat of Kyogai. And this is when he would try to stop Inosuke from hurting the demon in the box, right? The whole Zenitsu protecting Nezuko type of thing. And this is when Tanjiro is telling him, like, no, that's my sister, don't do that, blah, blah, blah. And in doing this, Inosuke actually thinks about it for a second. He's like, wait, this is your sister? Oh, so you're protecting her? Nah. And eventually he would kind of decide that he's going to do whatever he wants anyways. But that's because Tanjiro's charisma made him question it, but not enough to where he just decided not to do it. In which this is when a fight would break out between Inosuke and Tanjiro. But the fight would be very one-sided. Tanjiro would easily defeat him, and it would be a pretty straightforward thing for him to handle. But he would be able to convince him after beating him very easily, in fact, that they're going to team up, all three of them. They're going to come together, and they're going to, work together and all that stuff. And this is when they would head out, go to a nearby area or nearby place, a little house, that they would get some rest, they would get some food, stuff like that. He would be able to convince all three of them, I guess all two of them technically, that they should go up to Mount Natagumo and basically save the Demon Slayers. Zenitsu would actually listen this time around and would have a lot more confidence going into this. And Tanjiro's thinking, well, shoot, I mean, if I can make these two feel confident, which I guess Inosuke doesn't really need to feel confident, but at the same time, someone like Zenitsu, make him feel confident, shit, that might be the best superpower I could possibly give, because it seems like Zenitsu needs to fall asleep and all this stuff, and he still does right now, but he has even more confidence though now to actually put forth effort and put forth his ability and skill and all that stuff, and that's only going to help them in the near future, making both Inosuke and Zenitsu stronger in the near future especially, but Zenitsu more in the current present, making him stronger and more capable. Now, as they do face off with the various demons within the forest, they do try their best to save their demon slayers, but unfortunately that doesn't really happen. The defeat of the doll is pretty easy, and so is the mother spider demon, which Tanjiro puts down, like, not actually hurting her very much, which is one of his main abilities, or one of his one of Tanjiro's water breathing techniques, and he's able to basically slice her neck off, making it so that it doesn't actually hurt her as much, making her feel like, it's just a warmth and a relaxation, using the fifth form, Blessed Rain after the drought, and in doing so is defeating the mother spider demon, but not having her go through an immense amount of pain. And eventually, you can hear in the distance Zenitsu going crazy. Zenitsu beating up on the sun spider demon and destroying him. I mean, Zenitsu is even doing a better job in this kind of this reality and in this version of events. On top of that, when they face off with the father spider demon, Tanjiro and Inosuke together, they're stronger. They're better. I mean, they're legitimately better at this point. As Tanjiro especially, like way stronger. So he's able to actually defeat the father spider demon. And as this defeat would ensue, he would get quite a bit of XP. And as he's getting that XP, it gets him all the way up to level 50. But it does tell him that at level 50, he is level capped. Now he wonders, why is he level capped? And it seems that it has something to do with only utilizing water breathing, believing that there is some sort of connection with the black sword, but also some sort of connection with him only utilizing water breathing. Maybe it's capping him because that is not his natural style of breathing. Capping him at 50, and he realizes after putting a ton of points into intelligence and also some more points into charisma, he realizes that the sun breathing, or the Hinokami Kagura, that he's been searching and trying to figure out, is going to be a big part of his next kind of jump in the leveling system, in which he thinks, okay, that's a good thing to know, because it's like, I don't want to stunt myself and, make it so that I can no longer level up at all. But this is when he would face off with Rui with the help of Inosuke, because Inosuke here actually doesn't get, trapped into a fight with the father spider demon. He would face off with Rui with Tanjiro, and the fight would be easier, but Tanjiro would be using this more as a way to try to learn and try to figure out how to utilize the Hinokami Kagura. And eventually he would awaken it, and it would up his his cap from 50 all the way to 100. It doesn't mean he's level 100, but that's at least the cap for now. And he shoots up, kind of like his stats boost up just a little bit, being that he has perfect synergy with the Hinokami Kagura, or, sun breathing, right? He has perfect synergy with it. He is a sun breather. So when he does, he actually gets a slight boost, a 1.1 times boost in all his stats, in which it's not insane, but the higher the stats are, obviously it's going to be a slightly bigger boost. And in this situation, it does make it so he's a little bit stronger, right? He's a little bit stronger, but also flat out sun breathing is a lot better and a lot stronger than his utilization of water breathing. So when he faces off with Rui, and with the help of Inosuke, I mean, he probably could have won this one-on-one. And at the end of the day, having 3-on-1 with the obviously Nezuko helping out too is going to be beyond helpful. And Tanjiro, Inosuke, and Nezuko, are able to defeat Rui. And just like that, Tanjiro spikes up in leveling as well, gaining another 5 levels, being that obviously it is slower to level up because the higher he's getting. But another 5 levels is definitely helpful when he starts putting like 3 points more points into charisma, and then probably like another 2 points in kind of endurance, or maybe the points into intelligence or something like that, allowing him to figure out sun breathing a lot easier, or at least a lot better. And eventually Giyu would show up. He would realize Tanjiro and them actually defeated one of the 12 Kizuki, which is pretty impressive. I mean, don't get me wrong, it is a lower moon, so it's not like it's some crazy thing that it's like, oh, you automatically should be a Hashira, because they were 3-on-1. But Tanjiro probably could have done this by himself, so there is a world where maybe he would or could be potentially slotted into the Hashira spot. But, of course, for now, he's not even thinking about that. He's just thinking about helping his sister and all of these things. And eventually, Shinobu would show up, Kanao would show up, and a fight would break out. And Tanjiro would be a lot better in this fight. I mean, he would have the help of Inosuke to protect not Zenitsu. So I keep almost saying Zenitsu, Nezuko, of course. So they would try to do their absolute best, and Tanjiro would even try to talk them out of it, and it would almost work initially. But they have having the mindset of all demons must die for so many years. It's hard to convince someone otherwise, right? It's borderline impossible to convince someone otherwise of that idea. So it still happens the way it happens, but Tanjiro doesn't get knocked out or anything. Eventually, it is said, okay, bring Tanjiro, Nezuko, and everybody else, bring them to the mansion, and this is when it would be revealed that he would be trialed by the Hashira, and all the same things happen just like normal. It would be decided that Nezuko and him should still be demon slayers. Giyu and Urakodaki put their lives on the line for it and all that stuff. The whole Wind Hashira does the whole thing to discredit Nezuko, and this is when we jump into training. Jumping into training is the perfect thing for Tanjiro, Nezuko, or really, you can add Nezuko there, but she probably wouldn't be training that often, if training at all, mostly sleeping. But Tanjiro, Zenitsu, and Inosuke, because Tanjiro can legitimately push them even harder. The normal time where they're like, oh, I give up type of thing, or I kind of not being, not being the way they should be, Tanjiro is able to utilize his charisma to make them jump into action with rehabilitation training, and they all three get way stronger together. And Tanjiro does get a couple points from training, but he gets a lot less now from training and a lot more from just slaying demons. So that's something that he tries to focus on, but he gets a couple points here and there, and he tries his best to continue learning how to utilize sun breathing, but he only knows the bare basics, and he's almost mastered the basics of it. That's kind of where he's at right now. And he obviously learns concentration, breathing, constant. He learns all this stuff, right? All the stuff that he normally does, but he's a lot further, in terms of sun breathing. And he still needs kind of that kind of focus from Rengoku, though, believing that Rengoku himself, they need to have him train or help him kind of train and do all this stuff. So that would still happen where him, Zenitsu, Inosuke, and also obviously Nezuko in the box would head off to meet Kyojuro Rengoku for the first time. Now, it would go pretty similar in terms of defeating Enmu and stuff like that. Enmu would not be that difficult. Tanjiro would find pretty easy ways of defeating Enmu, and Zenitsu and Inosuke are quite a bit stronger than normal. So having the help of them with Rengoku cleaning up the rest of the kind of train carts is a very, very easy thing to deal with. And at the end of the day, they're able to defeat Enmu with a slice to the neck, Tanjiro utilizing Hinokami Kagura, and Inosuke utilizing his beast breathing, slicing through the neck of Enmu after getting their opportunity to do so at the front of the train. And eventually, everybody is good, everybody is settled, and that is another big boost in stats, another, I would say 5 levels, which you go up 2 levels, 57, another 5, right? Those are kind of where he's at. He's probably at 62, maybe, right? It depends on how you want to scale the leveling, but he'd probably be at level 62, and he would continue putting points into a little bit into charisma, a little bit into luck, maybe a little bit into intelligence, maybe even some into perception, depending on the circumstance, but intelligence helps a little bit with perception and stuff like that. But at the end of the day, they defeated another lower moon, which is pretty wild for them to really think about. But what they wouldn't think would actually happen is the arrival of an upper moon 3, known as Akaza. And Akaza begins to fight with Rengoku at a totally different level. And Tanjiro tries to really analyze what's happening, tries to figure out a way to actually help Rengoku. He even tells Rengoku, kind of shouts it out, that he has this, he's got this, he can do this. And in doing so, it actually helps Rengoku too. But he looks towards Zenitsu and Inosuke, and they're struck with a little bit of fear. And he looks at them and tells them that Rengoku might not actually be able to win this. That Tanjiro begins to say, like, he sees something. He sees Akaza is different, that he's playing with Rengoku. He's not taking him fully seriously. He's just enjoying this fight, so he continues to push it longer and longer. But Tanjiro looks at Inosuke and Zenitsu and tells them they could be the factor. They can change this fight forever. In which Zenitsu looks at Inosuke and they look at Tanjiro and they both stand up, ready to help fight. And that's exactly what Tanjiro wants to do. And as he walks towards the area, Rengoku would basically try to wave him off. But before you know it, Inosuke and Zenitsu are already there, including Tanjiro as well, fighting alongside Rengoku and actually making this fight pretty damn difficult for Akaza. Now, in all honesty, it's still Akaza's fight to win. Like, it's still something that Akaza can really keep up with. But it seems like Tanjiro is giving him one hell of a run for his money, because it seems like Tanjiro's sun breathing, but also his ability to kind of perceive some of Akaza's abilities and moves is making things very difficult. And it seems like the more Tanjiro reassures the three Demon Slayers, the more they actually get more confident and stronger as well. And it's making him very uneasy about this fight. And they give it their absolute all to basically get it to sunrise, and the sun would eventually start coming up. But the thing is, Akaza, he's not here to necessarily kill anybody else other than Tanjiro. So when he has all these people kind of overwhelming him to a certain extent, he decides to absolutely dip out as quick as possible and just take his leave, believing that it's basically the sun itself is kind of restricting him. If the sun wasn't here, he probably could still win. But Tanjiro does everything he can to try to stop him, and he goes one final strike, utilizing Hinokami Kagura, and he would dash towards Akaza at full speed. Zenitsu would do the same, slashing towards his neck, not really putting a dent in it, but giving Tanjiro that moment. A moment where out of nowhere, he could feel strength and power go insanely high for him, and he would begin the awakening of his Demon Slayer mark. And as he slices toward the neck of Akaza, he would slash halfway through it and would almost be able to finish the job, but Akaza would smack the sword, shattering the sword as he runs away, barely being able to actually get out of harm's way, and just barely living a slice through the neck. And he heals up, but he begins panting after getting away to safety. He's in shock. He doesn't know how it happened. That a weakling really did that? How does this make sense? And well, we look at Tanjiro, and he has awakened his Demon Slayer mark far earlier, and it's going to have an effect on so many people as well. Because when Tanjiro begins training with so many, he starts learning from Rengoku, who, by the way, is still alive. Learning from Rengoku especially about sun breathing, training in sun breathing, and learning it a lot quicker, like way quicker than normal because of his intelligence stats and all that stuff. And in terms of eventually taking on a mission with Tengen, going to the Entertainment District arc, or the Entertainment District, this fight against Daki is something a lot that Tanjiro can handle a lot better. And when he fights Daki and faces off with her initially, this is when he goes absolutely insane from his training and his slaying of various other demons. And he continues to push himself to absolute new heights. And Tanjiro is outclassing Daki. It's not until Gyutaro would show up when Daki and Tanjiro are 1 versus 1, and Gyutaro would have to step in and Big Brother would have to take over. But with the arrival of Tengen, this is where things start evening up, if not being heavily in the favor of the team of Demon Slayers, because Zenitsu and Inosuke are about to arrive, and these two are far stronger than normal, and Zenitsu and Inosuke to face off with Daki is a lot better in their favor than it was initially. Now, this would lead to Tanjiro eventually awakening his Demon Slayer mark once again a lot sooner against Gyutaro, and this would actually push Tengen to awakening his Demon Slayer mark as well. And in awakening his Demon Slayer mark, Tengen and Tanjiro slice through the neck of Gyutaro together. Yes, not really knowing if Tanjiro could do it on his own, which he definitely could have, but having both of them there just kind of made sure that it happened, and they got rid of him. And this would be the first death of an upper moon really ever in a very long time, and the first death of an upper moon in, well, like I said, forever. And Tengen comes out of this really not harmed, but Tanjiro would get a ton of experience points, going from probably like level 62 to almost like level 70, probably like closer to that. And he gets a ton of experience from that. So does Nezuko, being that she was there. She wasn't necessarily a super big part of the fight, but this is when she would even be able to kind of speak on her own. But they don't know that she obviously could conquer the sun, because that's not anything to do with anything. But it allows her to kind of have the wherewithal to not harm humans, right, without, you know, the bamboo in her mouth, but also have the understanding of how to speak better, talk better, understand everything better, and all that stuff. And it would lead to an even stronger Nezuko, a lot stronger Zenitsu and Inosuke, obviously, after this fight is all said and done. And a Tengen that frankly could continue fighting. Like if he wanted to, he could. But of course, Iguro would eventually arrive, and Tengen would basically say Tanjiro is his successor. Like, he is more than ready. He is the sun-breathing Hashira. And Iguro is like, that's not true. There's no way, blah, blah, blah. But Tanjiro came out of this basically unscathed. Like, he's not really hurt. Not that much. Nowhere near as much as the original. So he's standing there in front of Iguro, and they easily beat an upper moon. Yes, it was upper moon 6, in which he kind of clowns on, basically saying, oh, it's just the lowest of the upper moons. Like, okay, buddy, like, whatever. But still, that is something that happened, and Tengen believes that Tanjiro himself, he is the perfect replacement, and it's time for him to retire. And Iguro is like, no, you can't do this, because you awakened the Demon Slayer mark. Like, we're good now. Like, you can do this. And of course, this is when Tengen's like, if the rumors are true, and I'm bound to die like a lot sooner now because of the Demon Slayer mark, well, I want to spend as much time as I possibly can with the people I love. So I'm gonna do that. And that's exactly what Tengen does. We don't know for sure if he's gonna die really, really soon. I know that is kind of the idea of the Demon Slayer mark, but unfortunately, at least he gets, or unfortunately, it could potentially happen, if not almost be a guarantee. But luckily enough, he does have a little bit more time to kind of stay with his loved ones and just enjoy the time he has left with them. And he completely separates himself from the Demon Slayers. He's around there from time to time, and eventually might help with training, but he's gone. And arguably, he wouldn't even need to help with training, especially with Tanjiro's advancements and even more advancements that he has now gained after the fight with an upper moon. And after all that is said and done, they head back to the Butterfly Mansion. He recovers. All three of them continue training. Tanjiro continues his training, and he perfects sun breathing to a large degree and puts himself on a pedestal that is beyond a lot of people. Like, he might just be the strongest among all the Hashira at this point. And putting him on that type of level already, and that type of level in general, makes the kind of whole Swordsmith's Village arc a joke. Because he continues training, working, training, helping others, and even a lot of these people that are around actually find Tanjiro have a lot more favor of Tanjiro, because normally Muchiro initially doesn't really like him that much, but this time around Muchiro actually really, really likes Tanjiro. Only person that doesn't like him is Iguro and probably the Wind Hashira just a little bit, but they're warming up to him just a tad. They're warming up to him little by little. But this fight against Hantengu and Muchiro's fight against Gyoko would be basically a foregone conclusion, and Tanjiro's ability to keep up with some of the best Hashira is beyond what you think. And on top of that, his charisma allows basically Genya, Nezuko, Mitsuri to actually be even stronger because of his words of charisma and his kind of wants for them to get stronger and be better and this and that and all that stuff. All of it, right, is helpful for them, and all of that is definitely helpful to get them more powerful and way stronger than normal. And yes, eventually Nezuko would conquer the sun, and she would tell Tanjiro, actually would understand that her body is working in a certain way, and it seems like she already knew that she would conquer the sun. Tanjiro's initially a reaction to this is like, let's not do that because we don't know if it's going to work. But Nezuko basically tells him like, no, it's going to work. I conquered the sun. I can tell my whole body, my biology, all this stuff, it has been evolving. And it seems like I have conquered it and I can conquer it. And she ends up stepping out into the sun after all this is said and done. And yes, this does kind of tell Muzan the same way that he normally learns. But she does conquer the sun and Tanjiro's in shock. But this version of Nezuko is way stronger and way better, and she skyrockets in terms of stats as well. But isn't necessarily going to matter because Tanjiro wants her to turn back into a human as soon as possible and wants nothing for her to do with a eventual final fight with Muzan himself. After that, the Hashira would meet, and that would include Tanjiro, by the way, because Tanjiro is a Hashira now. And they would meet, they would begin training, they would start training with each other. Tanjiro would start pushing his limits beyond what you could even possibly imagine, and that the eventual fight with Muzan would be right around the corner. Tanjiro wanting to strike at him as soon as possible and whenever he can, and he tries to. He wants to fight with Muzan now, like right now, but he would get sent, just like everybody else, into the Infinity Castle, and he would have his rematch with Akaza. And this is when Akaza would face off with Tanjiro, and Tanjiro himself, well, he's thinking he wants to fight him by himself, which obviously everybody else is like, this is a horrible idea. But at the same time, Tanjiro says that Giyu and Rengoku could be really, really helpful elsewhere, and he truly believes that he can defeat Akaza on his own, in which they have to just trust him at this point. He is a Hashira, and probably the strongest amongst them all. So Tanjiro faces off with Akaza for the final time, and the one-on-one that Akaza would always have wanted is standing in front of him. And when his eventual defeat would ensue, there would be no question that he wants to continue on in life or do this or do that. He knows he was defeated one-on-one by somebody better than him, because the perception, the intelligence, and all those stats that Tanjiro has been accumulating, it allows him to understand that Akaza's whole ability to basically fight and his reflexes and all of his punches and stuff like that are all based off of his fighting spirit. And that right there allows Tanjiro to hide his own fighting spirit and awaken even something greater outside of even just the Demon Slayer mark, the transparent world. And that allows him to awaken something even greater and allows him to defeat Akaza in a matter of just minutes. And Akaza's in shock, and Tanjiro would stand next to him, take a knee, and would tell him that he was impressive, the strongest he's seen, and he wants him to understand that he gets it. He understands that there must have been something in his past that he went through, someone he loved that he lost, and it pushed him to this point. And it doesn't mean he has to, just kind of, keep going with this horrendous stuff that he could potentially do. He has a good heart in there. And with those words combined with the reveal of his loved one, his wife, his love of his life, eventually Akaza would no longer hear the words of Muzan Kibusuji creeping up behind his neck and behind his head. And eventually Tanjiro would watch as Akaza would go to the afterlife, and Tanjiro's stats, one-on-one with the one and only Akaza, would shoot up like a madman, and his abilities and his strength and all of the abilities he has would shoot up like crazy as well. And now obviously unlocking even more abilities like the transparent world pushes him to an even greater degree. He ups his endurance, being that he believes that he needs to push his endurance higher so that he can last to the end of, well, until the sun rises. And eventually he would do just that, and he would face and help out with other demons that are there, but eventually would face off with Muzan, and Muzan would realize there's a reason why when he looked at Tanjiro, he saw that person. He saw that monster. When he looked at Tanjiro, he saw Yorichi. And now he's understanding it. Because this kid, he might just be the reincarnation of him specifically. Now, we all know that's not the case necessarily, right? That's not it. Obviously, no. He's not. He's not the reincarnation of Yorichi. But to Muzan, he sees this, he looks at this, and he sees, obviously, Tanjiro, and he's thinking, holy shit, this can't be happening. This isn't real. How does any of this make sense? Because I thought I was ready. I thought I was higher. I thought I was stronger. I thought I was all of this. I thought I was just, another level. And now it seems as if it's a different thing now going on. Tanjiro's skill has progressed so far beyond any demon's comprehension, and Tanjiro's ability in general seems to have skyrocketed beyond anything they have seen. And not only has it happened because of Muzan's decision to end his family and turn his sister, but it essentially is the reason why Muzan will never touch immortality in his life, and Tanjiro would find himself defeating Muzan Kibutsuji and defeating the demons themselves, and having a lot of the Hashira surviving this time around because of the helpfulness of not only his charisma, but also everything else entirely with his ability to fight. And Tanjiro stands there, and everybody looks at him, realizing that this right here, he was the one. He was the chosen one. And they can't imagine a different world where he never existed, and a different world where maybe, just maybe, they didn't get so lucky, because Muzan could have been an even more damning issue than they ever expected. But now they understand. This Tanjiro Kamado is the reason why, essentially, this world will now know peace. But with that said, that is the end of this What If. What if Tanjiro had a leveling system? And if you enjoyed, show some love. Leave a like, leave a sub, leave a comment down below, all that good stuff. This was probably a longer episode than normal. I kind of ranted on a bit, and I had a lot of fun. And you guys will definitely see if the video is like really long and it's a lot of extra detail that I like talking about. Normally it's because I really enjoyed the idea, or I really enjoyed talking about it. It's not that I don't enjoy other what ifs, but some of them are more like, oh, I could do this, I could do that. This had a lot of ways I could have really focused the story and progressed it and had people get stronger. But I just wanted to say that really quick. So if you like longer what ifs, you'll probably like this one, right? It's a little bit longer than normal, but they won't all be like this. Just a little heads up. But I hope you guys enjoyed nonetheless. If you did, leave a like, leave a sub, leave a comment down below, all that good stuff. Hope you guys enjoyed the video, and I hope all y'all have an amazing day. Later.